Hey, welcome everybody to our Wednesday afternoon call. It's the June 28th, the last Wednesday of the month. We've had 5 Wednesdays this month. It's been a long month for Wednesdays, but it's also the middle part of the year now. You have 6 months to go. Now is a good time to start even advertising for the holidays. So you can do that. Don't forget to do that. We have a lot of things that you can advertise. And actually, we have a great presentation today by Don Bottcher on how advertising has changed from 1970 to today. And we'll let him do that in a little bit. But what I want to do first is talk a little bit about the new people here, and especially the IITs. And this has to do with what exactly needs to be put in a Trello card when new people are being added. Now, sometimes you will get people, depending on what your program you're working, where you'll have to put in their whole name, address, and everything. But in spite of that, when you do have a new person, let's say, come in under you, you want to be able to put in certain information that is important to everybody. I'm going to share my screen right now to show you what I'm talking about. And I have this in a PDF format that I can give you after if you want to follow it down, but pay attention to this. This is important. All instructors from MSI down want everybody to do this. First of all, you want to put your picture on your card. If you have your own board and your own Trello card, then of course put your own picture on it. And then again, what you want to do, and basically what I do, is I just copy everything from the top down and just paste it right in the description area. You want to always make sure on every Trello card that first of all, have their level, PBS student, IIT, GSI, whatever. And then it's obvious, phone number, email, complete mail and address, and zip code. This is all important for future reasons. If something does happen that you cannot get to your student, or your instructor can't get to you, or MSI can't get to you, they can look at this and they'll know exactly how to assist you if maybe you're sick or something and you can't get into one of your sites. So what you want to have here is your Cache Network Direct information, your computer link, your DTCA, which is either, your ID username, and preferably on the binary, because it's binary on the right or left side, which is, you should all know what that is. And if not, that's being presented to you when you joined by your instructor. Same thing with Velavita. You put your username in there, and whether you're on the right or left side, your Vivo, for those who are in the Vivo program, PBS URL. Okay, you put the whole URL in there, and that's a good thing, instead of just like mine 6Y80. It's the whole URL. All right, the HTTPS and so forth, and the email that you're using for Trello, and also your Skype name. Now, on the Skype names, don't forget that it's a lot easier when you have your own personal name on there rather than the CID colon and a bunch of characters. So if you have that in your Skype, change it. Make sure your picture is on your Skype also, and try to change it to your first and last name, because nobody will know who you are if it's a CID, right? So to make it easy for everybody, you want to do that. Now we've had our third anchor, Savings Highway Global. So you want to put your affiliate link in there also. Okay. And you want to put your birthday there so we can celebrate your birthdays and the day you started or bought your PBS. And again, this is for the instructors when they bring in new people, and you want to make sure your information is on your own cards also. And if you don't know, just send all this information to your MSIs or your instructor so they can put it on your card. Now, also what's very important is the emergency contact, because, life happens. And with this information, the upline will be able to get a hold of the people that you put in here. So you want to put their first name in, wife or spouse or other, but you want to put their first and last name in, their relationship, their address, even if it's the same as yours, just do it again, everything the same. Because if they need to be sent out by snail mail information, they'll need, obviously we'll need all that information. And their phone number to get in touch with them and their email. Okay. The bottom part underneath that is optional. It's for, the people that are taking advantage of that particular program. But from the email up to the top is what is important and is definitely needed on every single Trello card. So if you're following up on older contacts, older students that you haven't seen in a while, just plop that in there. It's right in with the description, not in the activity, right? But right up on top, right under their name in the description. Okay. So again, this is important, and all the instructors want everybody, to put that information on all the Trello cards. Okay. Actually, let me show you something else here while we're talking about it. Let me share the screen again. Okay. In case you don't know about the Trello card, here's an example here. So you have a new student, let's say, and you put their name, up on top, or the name is already up on top. This is what I'm talking about, this in the description. So you have their name, and what you want to do is take that information, see if I can do that. And here you go. And plop it in there. Okay, so now you have, of course, their name is already there, but the first thing on top should be their name, their phone number, email, and all that information. And then you can do a space. Okay, does that look good to everybody? Now, don't forget to click save. And there it is in your description, not in the activity, but in the description. Now over here, if you can't figure out how to put your picture in, or if you have somebody who doesn't have a picture, you want to get them invited. But if this is your card that you are going to be working, you can easily go over here to click join and your picture will show up, right? Now, if it's for one of your students and, you can have your name there, you can add other pictures too. But to get them, you just go over to the members. See, this one is join. When you hit join, that's your picture that comes up. If you hit members, it'll show you all the people that are there. So if you have a student that you want to put in there, just go over here, and if you can't find them, just type in their name up on top. Okay. And then when you find them, then just click on them and whammo, their picture will show up. Okay. And if they're not on there, then you'll have to invite them. Okay, so I just wanted to show you again where to put that information in the description and how to find your pictures. And everything else is as it is. Okay, sound good, folks? Okay. Okay, that's that. Okay, now this is being recorded, so after this presentation is over and it gets all loaded and formatted, I'll be putting it in the Skype messages. Now, Don, we are ready for you. All the pictures got changed around up on top, so I don't see anybody. I don't know how that happened, but
it's Wednesday afternoon. Why not?
Yeah. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Okay. Hang on. Let me see if I can get my screen share up here. Okay. All right. Can everybody see that one okay?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So today I'm talking about something that's near and dear to me. Most people don't know it, but I have an associate degree in English and a Bachelor of Arts in photojournalism. So advertising is something that's near and dear to me because I worked my way through college selling advertising in addition to my VA scholarship, and that's how I got through. So I've been in advertising for many years. So advertising in any age is largely shaped by cultural, social, and political environment that surrounds it. Think about the everyday world when you're out there. You can lead a sheltered life. You can turn anything on today and be bombarded by advertising. It's just a matter of course. The first advertising that was developed was word of mouth, WOM. This was done by people moving across the country and saying, hey, I got my horse shoed at the local livery stable. And usually the local livery was the only place that you could get a horse shoed anyway. So that accounted for a lot of word of mouth advertising. Then they decided that they needed a town crier who would go out and announce the news of the town every day, that he'd ring a bell, he'd be assigned a certain time, or usually in the morning or the afternoon or the evening or 3 times a day, he'd go out and go up down the main street shouting whatever was new and what was happening in the town. That's also word of mouth advertising, but it reached a lot more people. Then came the single sheet newspaper. And this was often printed on a hand press and either posted outside of the newspaper office itself or at the sheriff's office. And the reason they never posted them by the bars was because people would just rip them off and take them inside and read them. So it wasn't very useful. Okay. And
Oops. Okay.
You're okay, Russell?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry.
No problem. And because of this, the later editions turned into editions, whether they were single sheet, double sheet, folds, whatever, on the corner, so you could generate revenue for the newspaper instead of just having it in one place that everybody could come read to it. Then came radio, television, and internet with the unlimited options we have today. Okay, so since I'm a 1957 child, I'm going to start in the 1950s. 1950s were an exciting time. We had Frank Sinatra, we had Elvis, we had many more singers that were out there. The 1950s is considered both the golden era of 3D cinematography. I'm sure everybody can relate to that because sooner or later you go to a 3D movie and have to watch it through those cheesy glasses they give you that are three-dimensional, and sit there and wonder at things and how they do that. Okay. Then a huge increase in population erupted. Okay. The war ended and the baby boom occurred in 19. Now, get this, people. If you want to feel old, just stay tuned. We'll get there. In 1952 alone, 3.9 million babies were born. So this is our generation, folks. And an average of 4 million babies were born every year after that. Okay. For an advertiser, they saw this as an opportunity to address consumer needs and desires, particularly those of women. Okay. They were targeted early on, and to this day, they still are. Because why? Women do the most shopping in the household, and that's why. Women needed to lose baby fat, and they had an obsession and body image and weight. These came into play when advertisers targeted them, and they would buy any and just about everything that would help them stay slim. They had an obsession with dieting. Advertisers began promoting bath salts, suction cups, candy, and even belts, all the things that were sure to help women keep their slim, sexy figures. The rise of targeting specific demographics started in this decade. Teenagers who were forming their own subculture because there were so many of them, for the first time ever, were seen as a lucrative demographic to target. And the reason they were targeted was because there were so many of them and they had a disposable income. If you're living at home and working, you have disposable income. And they made an influence on their parents' spending habits. They were regular consumers of food, music, and of course, TV. Many agencies began using motivational research to help advertisers influence their consumer base needs on their need for safety, sex, belongings, and success. They used psychological ads to examine their spending habits. They created personalities that the everyday consumer could relate to or aspire to become. I remember the Marlboro Man because I was heavily into racing at one time, and in the 60s and 70s, NASCAR was dominated by tobacco and alcohol. I don't recall the Maiden Form Woman or the Hathaway Shirt Man, but I'm sure there's a few out there. Tom's smiling, he must. Product personalities became a prominent tactic. Influencers of the 50s were the first organ transplant was done in 1957. Color TV was in its infancy in the 50s. Most of the sets were still black and whites. A report came out that said cigarettes cause cancer. Okay, so you have all of the cigarette tobacco industries scrambling to legitimize their industry. Okay, Disneyland was founded. McDonald's came along, and the TV remote control was in its infancy. And we have NASA as well. The race for space got involved there with Sputnik and being the first to the moon or the first in outer space. Then came, excuse me, the 1960s revolution. The 1960s was all about revolution, whether it was social, political, advertising, and creativity. These were the years of John F. Kennedy and his assassination. Also, Martin Luther King and his civil rights, he was assassinated as well. Then came along the Vietnam War and the draft. Now, 50% of the U.S. population in the 60s was under the age of 25 due to the baby boom of the 50s. This swelled young people up in their teens and early 20s, and they took to protesting issues like consumerism, materialism, and capitalism. Now, they also protested the draft at that time because when you turned 18, you had to apply for the draft, and Uncle Sam would send you a draft card. And then you would report to somewhere on the date indicated, and they would figure out whether you were fit for Army duty or whatever service you were going into, had flat feet. I can't say flat feet today. Or you had a heart murmur or something that would consider you non-suitable for the draft age. And so when this happened, the conventional styles of advertising were thrown out the window and were replaced by new forms of advertising like humor, irony, and irreverence. Advertising was at times reprimanded for promoting materialism and attempting to deceive its consumers. Imagine that. They used actors who posed as doctors and lawyers to make serious claims about health benefits of things like smoking cigarettes, of all things. These advertisers constantly dodged bullets, escaping government regulations and taxation. From this happened that cigarette advertising got banned from TV as well as alcohol advertising. So that was one thing that came out of the 60s. Advertisers wanted nothing more than to connect with the young market of the day, especially since they were the ones that had the issues with materialism and conformism. Now, advertisers had to dig deep into their creativity and come up with clever ways to connect with the audience, who disdained the elitist approach of the past and embraced creativity. Advertisers began using characters to promote products. There was Ronald McDonald, the Pillsbury Doughboy, and Speedy for Alka-Seltzer. Volkswagen, who were numerous on the road at that time, also used an ad that said, "Why have a lemon when you can have a plum?" Never saw those, but in the 60s, you could look out the door and every other car seemed to be a Volkswagen because they were cheap and easy. The Beatles influenced music. Okay. The 70s, we went into a recession and the government began their ban on cigarette advertising. In the 1970s alone, consumers would be exposed up to 1,600 ads a day. I can't imagine 1,600 ads, but that's what it says. With TV programming now completely in color as of 1972, I don't think we got a color TV set till 1978 or 9. We were one of the few that still had black and white. Sales of color TVs finally outpaced black and white television and became a much sought after medium for advertising. Who wouldn't want to see a color ad versus black and white? The 1970s advertising switched the focus from very to the point messaging to more emotional approaches, sometimes to a fault. One of the most frowned upon practices of the 1970s advertising was subliminal messaging. Sexually charged words and photos were hidden in ice cubes, the folds of clothing, anywhere to get the target audience to associate the brand with innate desires. Okay, all the guys, remember the Farrah Fawcett poster? Had those curls in her hair that spelled sex? Or the advertising poster for the gin that had sex in the ice cubes? Those are all subliminal messaging. I don't know if there's any today. I don't study it anymore, but it was a neat advertising gimmick while it lasted. It sold lots of things. And then came the 1980s. Technology had a strong impact on the TV industry during the 80s, and network television stations saw their audience go down a little less than 60%. The reason for the decline in TV was cable. The cable news network, which launched in 1980, and MTV started in 1981, took up 40% of the audience alone. CNN sold advertising all over the world, giving companies a chance to advertise their products and services at a global level. Another phenomenon that occurred in the 80s that kept advertisers on their toes was the advent of the VCR. This allowed people to record their favorite shows, grab a remote, and fast forward through the commercials. I remember doing that as a kid. Heavy use of remotes also allowed the audience to easily change channels during commercials, much to the dismay of advertisers. But while challenges arose, so did new opportunities. Direct response home shopping became the new fad. Home shopping networks such as QVC, both launched in the 1980s, sold good at low price to consumers who called in to place the orders. These shopping networks paid the cable operators a percentage of the profit instead of buying commercial to advertise products. There was also the birth of infomercials. The 30-minute commercials, often centered around product promotion by celebrities, it became another popular avenue to advertise. I still remember listening to those for 30 minutes, and boy, I'm glad they're not there anymore. By the 1980s, advertising agencies started making 15-second commercials, hoping to maximize the ad's effectiveness and, of course, profits. Doing these 15-second ads allowed advertisers to run a larger amount of ads on TV, increasing their frequency and profits while decreasing costs. Some of you may or may not remember these from the 80s. The memorable ads are Wendy's, where's the beef? The little old lady sitting there and picking apart the hamburger on TV and going, where's the beef? And that moved a lot of people over to Wendy's. The two gentlemen in the cars, and one of them rolls down the window and says, by chance, do you have any Grey Poupon? And that was another thing that, always got me, because fancy cars, fancy clothes, and if I wanted to be there, I'd have to eat Grey Poupon on my whatever it was I was going to eat. Those are the memorable ones that I remember. So the 80s ended and the dawn of the 1990s began. Advertising experienced major changes. We changed media, we changed messages, we changed structure, and almost every part of the industry was altered during this decade. Oh, and then there was also the birth and boom of this little thing called the internet. Tune in Tuesday nights and let Niall explain that to you. The early 1990s brought a new generation to the forefront of popular media. This was Generation X. I don't know what generation we're in today, but they just don't care anymore, it seems like. While much of the Xer mythology was slackers, and they always questioned their skepticism and consumerism of advertising, and they accepted most things they saw as gospel by the marketing community. And the conceptual direction of ads began to change, often embracing either a softer sell or complete irreverence, or a little bit of both. Email blast and their regulation ensued. I remember getting on my email in 1995 and having about 30 ads there and 2 emails from people that I actually wanted to consume, and that was it. It was a day that was just like, man, why am I getting all these ads? It was a new thing that occurred, and therefore that they used it. With new avenues for taking products global, spending was spread thin. Marketers were under pressure to find the most cost-effective way to reach the largest audience possible. Let us remember that once upon a time, back in the early to mid-90s, anyone who surfed online could only do it after that long, painfully annoying dial-up sound. Yep, I remember that too. And when you got an email, there was a trumpet blast that announced that you had an email. Boy, was that long and boring. Marketers were uncertain about how it would play out and whether or not it would become a lucrative medium. Banner ads you also saw in 1994. Does that make you feel old or what? In 1996, the Internet Advertising Bureau issued its first report on internet ad spending. At that point, it was a mere $157 million. A year later, it increased by 263%. It continued to go up until the dot-com bubble burst in early 2000. The dot-com was everybody got a domain, everybody opened a business, and sooner or later, they didn't have enough business coming in, so they folded. And that leads us to the year 2000. Bill Gates deemed this the digital decade. Internet users go from 2.6 million to over 80 million. Mobile phones account for over 370 million in sales. If you really want to feel old, Google is 10 years old in 2009. It has been here forever. In 2009, consumers spent 34% of their media time online. Online spending thus went from 6.2 billion to 25.6 billion. But most of our advertising dollars were still spent on TV, newspaper, and radio advertising. So this leads to consumers move quickly. They see something, they buy it. The models move slowly because they need to be developed. And marketing always moves conservatively. If you jump over the cliff with what you're doing, you're not going to make it. You have to move slowly if you're a marketer. Okay? Technology shifts and models takes years to change. Now is the time for opportunity because opportunity comes cheap. This is where your PBS comes in. This is a time to test and learn. Rory's doing that every day. Google introduced AdWords in the year 2000. That was 23 years ago, folks. Facebook starts working with advertisers in 2006, and it targets consumers with targeted ads at this time. Advertisers now pursue advertising as content that does not look like advertising. Click on any highlights to something you're reading and you'll see. 2010 marked the launch of Instagram. We were getting better playbooks for overall strategy and understanding humans and getting to know interesting tools and channels. This should be the golden age of marketing, but it instead evolves into harmony with those two phenomena, and it's gone in two different directions, creating growing tensions. Okay. We now live in a digital era. No joke. Brands would cut down to tactical targeting communications in favor of broad emotional ads. Lots of things that you can see out there versus small things you can see out there. The problem is we have gotten the two mixed up. The shiny new tools and data get confused for strategy and objectives. And the strategy models that pointed to the need for brand building were seen by some as an argument not to explore new possibilities. The duality was fueled by tech fear of missing out. Where have we heard that? On the short term, and big commercial interest in both the old school and innovative sides of the ring. In this equation, example, Pepsi decided to spread its focus on Super Bowl ads. In this model, Pepsi focused on social media and brand purpose and lost about $350 million in market share to Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola kept its traditional marketing model and therefore bounded ahead. Traditional advertising and traditional players are quickly sobering up to the fact that just TV ads and physical and retail outlets will not suffice in the year 2020. TV reach is diminishing. Digital is an ever-increasing part of our consumer interactions, and traditional retail is seriously challenged by e-tailers. We had to be one of those. At the same time, these new things on the block will need to prove their abilities, not just on delivering engagement rates, but on delivering overreaching goals such as brand building, physical activity, or product benefits. Mastering the combination of singularity and consistency and strategy with curiosity and understanding new phenomena will be the key to success in the coming years. Traditional advertising today is about a third going to newspapers into 2010. In 2020, magazine advertising in the same period went down from 12% to a little over 2%. Radio advertising dropped from 9% to 5%. So we have gone from the first word of mouth advertising to the town crier to the newspaper hung in front of the office and eventually sold on the street corner. Then radio came along with its longer reach. Then came TV. Then came the internet, much as we have it today. The bottom line is that advertisers will go wherever the attention is. So they're going to find every spot where people are looking and put their ads as close to their sight line as they can possibly get. Now, through this all, I saw no mention of direct mail marketing. So I went and looked. And direct mail marketing is a whole nother thing. The median return on investment in direct mail marketing is over 5%. A survey showed that direct mail campaigns actually have a higher return of income than both paid search and online display ads. In fact, direct mail is only 1 percentage point behind social media, the second highest return on income median. And the reason is because direct mail is interactive. Customers physically handle mail and usually look at it. And then they decide to keep it, throw it away, trash it, whatever they're going to do. But it seems like it always gets more eyes because you actually have to handle it. If you include a promotional offer, coupon, or call to action that requires them to do something with the mailer, such as bring it to a store or restaurant, your customers are more likely to keep it. It's memorable. If you'd like to spark a more emotional response in a recipient, consider adding a personalized touch like a handwritten note or signature. Small gestures like this can make your marketing more memorable. Direct mail can also reach a wider demographic than electronic advertising if your target audience is less likely to use social media or email. This encompasses most of the people over 50 because that's what we were brought up to do. This form of traditional marketing can turn some people into potential customers when all electronic ads would have missed them completely. And that's my take on advertising from the start to today. Anybody have any questions?
This is awesome, especially the last part of this, guys. You want to pay attention and know there's a couple things that he mentioned that you can equate with what Rory says all the time and what we are doing today with advertising. Remember, people buy with emotion and they, back it up with the features. People buy what they want, not necessarily what they need. So what you want to do is you want to, in your advertising, remember, it starts right after the first page being modified, your wine page. You start advertising it before you move on to the next page. What you want to do is remember what Don just said. Says consumers move quickly. In this day and age, people don't have a lot of time to read. I mean, God, there's so much. As he said before, when it first came out, he had like 2 emails and 25 other all ads. Well, you start getting numb to ads after a while. I mean, now let's face it, every time you turn around, there's an ad for this, that, and the other thing. And people think they already saw your ad that you are putting out. So you have to make it uniquely different. but you don't want it to be too long. Consumers move quickly. So what's most important in your current ads is the headlines. You want to have headlines that pop, that really draw the people's interest. Why? Oh my God. Really? He was talking about weight. Yeah, sure. Everybody is still concerned about weight after 50 years. And that's like a number one, right, Don? That's like number one on everybody's list. And again, now is a
Yep.
good time to start advertising. I have for our plus, Velavita Plus,
And
because
the
now
same.
people want to start getting in shape for Christmas and for New Year's Eve. They want to look good. They want to fit in, especially the women want to fit into that special dress, and you want to get them really interested in what we have with the combination of Velavita. And also, the other thing that he mentioned was the FOMO, the fear of missing out. If you look at most of the ads that come to you, and go to the bottom, usually either the bottom or the top, very top, you'll see a time clock counting backwards, right? Or counting down. That's the fear of missing out. Now, if you come back tomorrow or the next day and use another computer even and go to the same thing, you'll see another countdown. So it really is just something to entice you at that point. And a lot of people that don't realize what's being done in advertising, they'll fall for that. But that's what's going on these days. So I noticed also, in spite of that, if I'm looking at something and you get to the bottom and you see a price, all you have to do is take your cursor up to the X on the tab, like you're gonna click out of it, and don't touch anything, just hover over it, and all of a sudden a pop-up will come and say, wait a minute, don't leave now, for if you go now, we'll give you an extra 5% off. That's the smart shopping, right? But
There you go.
back to the advertising. You want to initiate a reason why people want to get to your site, and all our advertising is designed for them to get to your website, not to the product that you're promoting. Remember that, it's very important, because when you are going for Google AdSense, Google wants, that hasn't changed. They want to know that you're getting people to your website. That's one of the biggest things. So not only are you advertising to get, people to your products on your website, but you're advertising to get people on your website. So Google knows that your content is relevant and people are interested in what you have. So make it again unique and put your own personality into it. And doesn't matter what the product is, whether you know about it or not. A lot of people get hung up on Bitcoin. Don't worry about it. Just do what you can with it, look it up, and just put whatever you want in there from the information that you've gotten. And if you do get information pertaining to your web pages from online, you want to make note that it's coming from a particular source. You just don't want to put information in without validating where it's coming from. So again, the advertising these days, that's why we do 3 texts in our BRTs. Talk to your instructor if you don't know what that is. And then the email, because, the more the person sees it, the more they'll remember it. Actually, whatever the product is, 6 times of emphasis equals 1 time of retention. So when you want somebody to really know what you have, re-emphasize it, reword it in 6 different ways or 6 different times, and they will then remember what it is. Just think about it when you're watching television. So many ads on the television these days that you see a new ad and you don't want to even pay attention to it the first time you see it. Just, advertisements on, like Don said, advertisements, are everywhere. Now there's so many of them, you just are oblivious to them. Oh, it's a good time to go wash the clothes, wash the dishes, cook, or whatever. But then all of a sudden you're seeing it 2 or 3 or 4, a dozen times. Lawyers are a good advertisement for that. I don't need a lawyer until you get into a car accident, then you need a lawyer, right? So the thing is, at that point, when somebody sees an ad that's been sent out, like from all of us, Ascension Marketing, then eventually they'll see an ad that they want to take advantage of, and it could be your ad. So you always want to keep your ads out there. Okay. Anything else, Don? Any other questions or comments or insertions?
I put the link to my page in the chat. If anybody wants that copy, they can go there and click on it. It'll take you to the page, and you can save that. And you'll know a little bit about the history of advertising.
Okay, speaking of that. Yeah.
That was excellent, Don.
That was
Thank you so
awesome.
much.
Yep, you're welcome.
And it also backs up the fact that Rory says, you know, you never depend on one leg of marketing. You always have, we have at least 7 right now with our system, but always at least have 3 for that table to stay
Stable.
stable. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Yep.
Very quick, Don first, thank you very much. Coming
You're
back
welcome,
to
Russell.
coming back to your earlier portion of this, there was a sheet of the things that were needed for Trello. There were information on there I'm not aware of. Is that sheet available to print off?
I
You're
think Tom was
almost
going to
there.
put it in chat.
Yeah, it's on
Yeah,
my board, Russ, and you're not
It's right
quite
there in
there
chat.
yet. You're almost there.
Yep. It's also in chat, so you have reference for it. Oh,
Thank you.
Tom, you need to allow access to it.
Seriously?
Yep. I clicked on it.
I
And it
just
said,
already? Okay.
you do my favorite trick. You copy it, then you don't allow access.
Yeah.
Just click on share on the top of that, and then anybody with the link, and you'll have
Well, yeah.
it.
Let me see. Share. Okay. Anyone
With the link.
and copy. Yeah, it works for me. You know, cause it's mine. Okay, let's try this again, Don. Check this out.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
Works for me now, so we're good there.
There you go, Russ. You see that? Yeah.
Yes,
Click on it. Make sure it comes up for you. Does it come up for you, Russell?
Disappeared before I could click.
Try again. Hit
Seriously?
chat.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add to that, and I'm sure Tom did. Make sure that you've got your picture on all of your students' cards when you create those. Because Stacy is going to stop sending the NDAs out if it's not correct.
Right. That's the first thing that I said, and it's right on the top of that form.
Good job, Tom.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, any final words from anyone? Again, like I said before, I'm going to end the recording right now.